Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Maury Castaneda, author of A 10 Hut, 10 Things Veterans Should Know Before They Enter the Civilian Workforce. Maury, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Are you ready to get started?
Great to be here. Oh, yeah, let's do this.
Let's dig in. Question number one.
All right.
What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
So if someone first writing their book, without question, the advice I'd give is just write. Write. If you want to get published, you need to have a manuscript. The only way to have a manuscript is to put words on paper, metaphorically, or type them out. You got to have something written. Just write. You can plan, you could set up a plan of action, milestones, things of that, but if you don't actually write, you're not going to have anything if that's your goal. So just write. Get on that computer and write. And this question is actually timely when you think about it. My wife she's writing a book right now. She's working on her first book, and she ran into a block. And that was the advice I gave her. Like, write. You just write. Put something down there, and then it'll spark new ideas. It'll generate new chapters, and it might even generate a new book. A 10 Hut, which I wrote, was actually a book that was sparked from an idea from the book that I'm writing now. I'm writing a book on leadership. But while I was writing this leadership book, I had a couple ideas from my military experience and leadership things that I had ran into there. And some lists came out, and I do a lot of my best thinking while I'm in the shower, right? Steaming up and just thinking, my thought incubator, I call it there. And, this book just kind of generated out all because of some paragraphs and some pages that I had written in the leadership book. So I shifted focus, wrote this book, and then put that out. So without question, you just got to write. Don't talk to anybody. Don't do anything. Just write.
Yeah, just do it. Get it out there and get it done, because done is better than perfect.
Exactly.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
So for as much for as much energy and excitement we were talking about, just write, you have to work with other people to get published. And for me, what I thought was hard was that you don't control the timeline anymore. If you have a great idea or something comes to you at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can get up and write it, right? Get on your computer and hack away. But when you're getting published, you work on other timelines. And I remember I set a goal for myself when I was writing my book. I'm going to get done writing this book by December 31st, and I should get a month to get the publisher or get publishing done, get the editor to look at it. So by January 31st, I'm going to have this book done. And boy, was I mistaken, right? I remember the first kind of slap in the face was sending the book to the editor on Monday. And, please, take a look, and worked all that out. And said, okay, thanks. I'll get this back to you by the end of the week. Like, well, it's like Monday morning. Why can't you get that back to me now? I'm dying to get this book out. So they have other things to do. So for me, it was just the hardest part was actually keeping that energy up, staying focused, and making sure that you can get it done, and working with the people. You're on somebody else's timeline, and just because there's still more. Once you get that book published, you still got to move it. So it's kind of a hurdle that you have to navigate.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
Oh, you got to give the book away. And what I have is a 3-phase process we kind of figured out through trial and error. But now I think I've got it down pretty well, and what has generated some sales for me is you have to give the book away, but you have to give it away to, you can give it to your friends and family. That's always nice, but you want to give it to people within your niche. All right, once you give that book away to the people in your niche, you got to speak about it. And then this is my key where I learned a lot. Was while I'm speaking, you got to generate that excitement about your book, because that's what's going to get people moving. So what I do is I ask a couple questions during my speeches, and if someone answer the question right, or if they just ask a question, I'll give them a book, and just tell them it's a great question. Here's a book, and then I try and create for lack of better terms, it's a fear of missing out. So I've given a couple books. Wrap up my speech at the end. So if anybody else is interested in having a book or getting a book signed, I'll be in the back. If you want to buy any, And inevitably, I get a handful to maybe some big groups coming in wanting to buy a book. I also have some business cards and some flyers and some other services that I could produce, and or other speaking opportunities, which will lead me to giving out more books, giving more speeches, and charging for both speeches and selling books in the back again. So once you can kind of get that cycle going, it's pretty easy.
And what is the best way to get that cycle going, do you feel?
Oh, like I said, I'll tell you how it happened for me, right? I was walking around at Barnes & Noble, there's still a couple around, and I was trying to figure out if my book was to be sold in this place, where would it be? And I realized I kind of had that epiphany, like my book is going to be on one shelf. There's thousands of shelves and hundreds of thousands of books or tens of thousands of books. And my book is going to go on one shelf. It's a niche book, right? It's a military book about for people transitioning. I had to go and figure out who was going to buy my book, but it was easier for me to figure out who was not going to buy my book. So once I figured out who was not going to buy my book, it was easy to focus on those people. So I gave that book out to those influencers that had a good following of veterans in this case. They would either be able to speak to the book, provide feedback, and then from there I would establish lines of communication, colleges, universities, different organizations, and then from there, like I said, give that book out, bring them in. They would talk a little bit about it. We would arrange a speech or some communications or panel, and then from there start the cycle.
And so you offer different types of speeches, right? Breakout sessions, keynotes, those type of things, panels.
Yeah, with respect to just selling the book, you want to do whatever you can to get in front of as many people as you can. So if you're on a panel, take it. If you're if you're fortunate enough to get a keynote, then go for it. That's great. That's a whole different line of revenue that you're going to get on top of that. But take whatever they give you. I would even argue for a first-time author, if someone wants to go out there and you have to speak for free, go for it. You have nothing to lose by getting your name out there. Take a couple pictures, put it on LinkedIn, put it on your Facebook page if you have one. Start a Facebook page or a website and just show, hey, I was out here speaking to these people about my book, and take a couple pictures, show them up there, give a couple away, and create excitement.
Yeah, another strategy that you can utilize with that too, especially with those first-time authors who might have to speak for free at some of these events. One of the nice things with that is you could actually, I'm happy to speak for free, but what I'd really like to do after this is also do a book signing, and at least that way you buy them in bulks, like $3 a piece, but you sell them for $10, so you actually make a nice little chunk of change, especially if you're doing a book signing for 50 to 100 books. So there's always different ways that you can actually monetize it, even if you're speaking for free.
Right, yeah. The most important thing is to get in front of as many people as you can and take whatever opportunities you can get. And I think if you hand the book out, hand it out with a business card or some type of flyer or capability statement that says that you're available to speak to these people, because chances are that's the niche you want to talk to. They're going to go back in that hole. They'll tell two friends, and maybe you can go back and speak at their business or something like that. It'll just generate another speech. And if you could speak and sell a certain amount of books per speech, you can kind of figure that out, then you're going to generate that revenue.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
The number one thing. Well, we were talking a little bit before, but without question, my favorite book is Moneyball by Michael Lewis.
Yes.
And I'm a baseball nut, and we were talking about my background with military leadership and also, my economics background. They all kind of put all of my passions together. So I really like that book. I think that what the number one thing I learned from that is that each team is different, right? Each group that you work with is different, and you have to use your own strengths to, you got to be who you are. You got to work to your strengths and don't try and copy anybody. Like I said, it goes to the military leadership that I had before. Every team is different. You got to put people in a position to be successful, and then let them be successful. Don't try and mold someone into something that they're not. And I think a lot of times you keep that, and that's the same thing with your book. If you're a certain type of niche writer, stay in your niche, until you get comfortable, and then you can venture out. But do it what works, right? Do what you do well, and I think that's what I learned the most from Moneyball.
Well, it's funny. I'm actually looking at a paperback version of that book right now in my library in my office. That is one of my all-time favorite books. I just love that philosophy about going against the grain. And for those who aren't too familiar with that book, there's actually a movie based on it too with Brad Pitt. It's a story about the Oakland A's and about using data and analytics and basically able to run your team on a shoestring, and that they actually had a lot of success doing that. And it was such an against the grain approach because baseball has all these traditionalists out there, and they were very much against analytics, because analytics are going back to the 1970s. So it's such an amazing thing. They went against the grain, and now every single baseball team has a specific analytics department. So they just totally changed the game.
Right. And the one thing I really liked about that book, and they dramatized it more in the movie than they did the book. But when they're talking about when you had all the traditionalists and they're saying who they're going to draft and who they're going to pick, they're trying to get their next line, their new employees, their new baseball players. Say we're going to try and compete like the Yankees. We're never going to beat the Yankees because we're not the Yankees. And I think because the Yankees are a high, for those that don't know, the Yankees are a high-spending team. They got huge revenue. Like you said, the A's are trying to do it on a shoestring budget. The Yankees have, disposable income. If you try and operate like that, you're never going to beat them. You have to use your own strengths. You have to use what's unconventional and work within the parameters that you've been dealt. Love it.
Yeah, you hit a nerve on that one, because that's one of my all-time favorite books. And you're actually one of the few guests we've had who have actually talked about sports books. So I totally had to dig in on that a little bit.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, no, I love that book.
Well,
for talk baseball, we could talk for another half hour.
Hey, so let's go to our final question, and that is about your favorite quote.
Okay.
So what is your favorite quote and why?
I got two. I don't know. It's like my kids. I don't know if I could pick one over the other. So right first, and it's common. It's the person that says, or the man that says he can, the man that says he can't, are both correct. And I think because that's self-belief, it resonates with me, because if you believe that you can do something, a person that believes in themselves is dangerous, right? A person that is passionate and believes that they can accomplish anything is going to accomplish it. However, if you do not believe in yourself, you do not believe in the situation or that you can overcome, then you won't. And I think when it comes right down to it, especially the first-time authors, which is what we're talking about today, if you believe that you're going to get that book done, then you'll get it done. If you want to let all the bad vibes and everything about people telling you that you can't, or then you're not. So it's really up to you. So that's why I really like that quote. The second one, keeping with our sports theme for the day, comes from Mike Tyson. Everybody has a game plan until they get punched in the face or punched in the mouth, depending on. He said it a couple times, and the reason I like that is kind of because you could take that from both perspectives, and obviously, the metaphor, not necessarily punching somebody in the face, but with Mike, what he was getting at was people would plan. This is what they're going to do against, and he said, I wouldn't care. I'm just going to punch them in the face, and that's kind of what I like to do. With respect, not literally, but when there's a situation, you rock the boat, be unconventional. There may be, any way to get the job done is the way to get the job done. And conversely, or the flip side, you can argue that you can make all these plans, and again to the first time author, you can have this plan, you can set up this plan of action and milestones, and I'm going to carve out 2 hours of this, and I'm going to write and I'm going to get this done. But if life punches you in the face, you got to figure out how to get that book done, and you got to still figure out how to persevere. So I think those two are kind of where I live my life by, and just nothing's for sure. Either don't get punched in the face if you can do, if you do, because you may, try and persevere. And if you see a situation, just go punch it in the face, because it might be all right. You set the rules, you dictate the action.
Well, and people always ask me about my favorite philosopher, and I typically say Mike Tyson.
All right.
Because I love that quote. I mean, seriously.
Cool.
And people are like, really?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, because everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. They're like, wow, that does make a lot of sense. I said, yeah, because I said Mike Tyson. You weren't realizing that. But that is one of my all-time favorite quotes, because what are you going to do when things go south? And that's when you got to think about. That's where I link it to The Martian, one of my favorite movies, where Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon, talks about, well, you can either accept it or you can get to work. I choose to get to work.
Right. It's really that simple. What are you going to do, right? When something happens, how are you going to respond? Right? Are you going to be the aggressor, or are you just going to go ahead and fold up and let things happen to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Maury, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
2 ways. If you want to discuss, anything to do with leadership or baseball or anything like that, go ahead and hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm at Maury Castaneda, and you can get my spelling from the podcast here from the link. It's just Maury Castaneda. And I have a website. It's helmleadership.com. So www.helm, H-E-L-M, like the steering wheel on a big ship, helmleadership.com.
Well, Maury, I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Hey, man, it was a pleasure. I had a great time. Anytime you need me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.